Hello, beautiful ladies. Welcome back inside Mademoiselle Diaries. I am Aurelia, the founder of Mademoiselle Diaries. Today, in our creativity series, I wanted to share with you ladies the systems that have supported my creative journey. Chances are, if you're watching this, you might feel a little bit creatively blocked, or perhaps you want to learn how to operate and lead from that flow, from that creative zone. I talked a lot about how most of us, we stay in this consumption or waiting zone and we never actually get into the creating part because we're constantly waiting for that moment of inspiration and it will magically appear to us and it never comes, so we never actually get to creating. This stems from a misconception that people have of artists and creatives, is that to be an artist and to be creative, we need to live a life that is so spontaneous without any rules, that we are just constantly led by our feelings, by moments of inspiration, and there's no structure in our days. And that is actually such a false belief. Creativity requires a lot of discipline and a lot of systems and honestly boringness that you might not expect. When I study the lives of creatives, thinkers, writers, authors, all of that, I noticed this pattern that they all have a very strong writing ritual, or very disciplined at least with their consumption habits. They're very diligent in following the same boring routine literally every single day. Ernest Hemingway, for example, he says, "When I'm working on a book or a story, I write every morning as soon after first light as possible," and he starts at 6 in the morning until noon with little to no breaks, and he will sometimes continue even after that. Susan Sontag, she's an essayist, novelist, and philosopher. She wrote this in her published diary. She wrote, "Starting tomorrow, if not today, I will get up every morning no later than 8, and I can break this rule once a week. I will have lunch only with Roger." Roger is her publisher. "And no, I don't go out for lunch, but I can break this rule once every 2 weeks. I will write in the notebook every day. I will tell people not to call in the morning or not answer their phone. I will try to confine my reading to the evening because I read too much as an escape from writing. I will answer letters once a week." So it's very strict. Like, I love that she also put a consumption rule. Like, I am just going to restrict reading and consuming at night, because she is well aware that actually reading books can be a form of escape to writing, to creating, and to starting your own craft. And another one, Haruki Murakami, I actually love this author. I love his books. He says, "When I'm in writing mode for a novel, I get up at 4 a.m. and I work for 5 to 6 hours. In the afternoon, I run for 10 kilometers or swim 1,500 meters, or I do both, and I read a bit and listen to some music. I go to bed at 9 p.m. I keep this routine every day without variation. The repetition itself becomes the important thing," he says. "It's a form of mesmerism. I mesmerize myself to reach a deeper state of mind." This is so interesting, this point of building up routines for a sense of mesmerism. I've never heard anyone speak of this, but it is true that when you have very strong routines and rituals to fall back into, you can actually build more depth within those activities. So, for example, I used to move every 6 months, every year, and I just felt like it was impossible for me to start a new hobby or to start a creative project, to start anything, even a friend group, and building lasting friendships. It was really hard because I was literally moving every 6 months. And now that I'm finally quite settled in Indonesia, it's been a year and a half, and it's only now that I actually feel like I'm building a life of true depth. Like, I actually have a friend group that I can rely on. I have my church community that is set, or my routines are set, and I feel like I can really write and create because those things are in set. So I feel like I can go deeper and deeper into each area of my life. So that's kind of an example of how, when you settle into a certain routine or ritual, you're able to go deeper. And I am not saying you should not seek out novelty at all. I think it's important. I even would condone to, try out something new every single week. but it is important that the foundations, the rituals are there. So even just reading from these examples, if you believe that creatives, they just wait for a moment of inspiration that suddenly the magic appears, no, it's actually from years actually of discipline and diligence and showing up to that blank page every single day that makes them create classics, that makes them create masterpieces. So here's what I come to believe. Every single person has this amazing imagination faculty that, yes, we have the same imagination faculty as Beethoven, as Picasso, as all of the great artists, great thinkers. We have that same imagination faculty. And I believe that because we're all created by God, and we're called to create because we're made in his image, and God's characteristic, one of his characteristics is creator. So we're also called to be creative. So the creativity is already inside of us, only that some actually have the systems and the rituals that support their creativity. And it's just a matter of realizing that we have the imagination, we have all of the answers already, but we need the systems to actually build up that creativity, to allow space for it to flourish properly, as we have seen with the examples that I've listed before. You can actually literally program yourself to default to creating and not consuming. And I will share with you, ladies and gentlemen, my 7 systems that I've set in place since last year, and it's helped me tremendously, especially in this day and age. And my first system that I set in place is the morning pages. This one is a true non-negotiable. This I took from the book The Artist Way. Of course, I talk about it again. You write 3 pages first thing in the morning before consuming anything. This is the time to really just write out all of your source of inspiration, all of your dissatisfactions. And the more honest you are with yourself, the more you'll be able to see, okay, this is where I need to change things a little bit. This is the direction that I need to head into. And writing 3 pages every single morning, I've done this for, I'd say, 4 to 5 months. It has made me so much more proactive about my life, so much more observant about my life as well, which I think are key into leading a creative life. You cannot live a creative life if you're passive. You need to be active. You need to be proactive actually with your life and to notice things. A lot of what creativity is about is actually simply attuning to what is already there. And it's not really, honestly, it's not about creating new things constantly. It's literally just being observant with reality. And the morning pages will give you that. And for me, honestly, my best ideas come from the morning pages. And yeah, I credit a lot of my essay ideas, a lot of my content ideas, a lot of these videos, they actually come and start from the morning pages. My second system that I set in place, this is another non-negotiable. So after my morning pages, I dedicate a quiet time with God. I believe that creativity is something very spiritual because, I mentioned earlier, I believe that we're all called by God to create because, we're made in his image. And therefore, when we're creating, it's almost like this process of communicating with God. I really view creativity that way, almost like receiving downloads from him. And that's why I think it's so important to have a dedicated time to simply attune to his voice and to listen to him. I really call this almost like a spiritual nourishment, a time of prayer. What I do is I simply grab my Bible. Usually I would read a chapter and then I would kind of reflect on it. I use a specific method called the SOAP method. Feel free to look it up online, but SOAP basically stands for scripture, observation, application, and prayer. So that's kind of how I meditate on scripture. And I love the SOAP method because not only am I reading scripture, being nourished, but I'm also really trying to apply I'm really trying to apply it also into my life, into my day. Like I said, creativity is a very spiritual thing. It's simply, for me, is attuning to the frequency of God and receiving downloads from him, and almost like emptying myself almost like a vessel to let God speak through me to you guys. That's really how, again, before I create these videos, before I write, I make sure that I'm communicating first with God. It's almost like this communication process and being like, okay, God, like, what do you want me to say to these people? What do they need to hear? Stuff like that. And yeah, for me, it's essential. Another system that I set in place is actually the creativity walks, that I like to call them, or you could also call them prayer walks, because in my trip to Paris, I was walking so much and I just found so much inspiration during those walks. So I decided to bring it back home. I was like, okay, I'm going to incorporate walking 30 minutes to an hour every single day. And oh my God, every single time I come back from these walks, I come back with such a clearer mind, a fresher mind, and also with new ideas. I think it's really important to have set time to literally just shut off your brain and to detach a little bit, to let your subconscious work instead of your conscious mind constantly working. It's really, really important to detach, and a lot of creativity is actually based on this process. When you detach, it's called the incubation period, where basically your conscious mind stops working, but you just kind of let the subconscious assemble things together, and then that's where you have the best ideas. That's why people say that you get the best ideas in the shower. And this pattern is actually quite common among thinkers and artists. For example, Einstein was a devoted daily walker. Beethoven took long afternoons through Vienna, and he always had like a notebook in hand as well. Tchaikovsky, he considered his 2 daily walks so essential to his work that he refused to skip them, believing he would fall ill if he did. He was very dependent on these walks. And Darwin also, he even built literally like a thinking path at his home, and he would walk it every single day. So you see these patterns where a lot of creatives would literally create intentional time every single day. Usually it would be literally just to walk or to run like Murakami, or go for a swim, just to let the conscious mind shut off and to expose yourself to a different scenery and to be open to receiving. Again, that is a major part of creativity, is being open to receiving, being in a state where you're like, okay, I'm open to receiving new ideas, new downloads, and walking or doing something that requires you to be attuned to the environment, your surroundings, stuff like that. It puts you in that receiving mode. Also, something that I kind of started experimenting a little bit is prayer walks. So I did this a few days ago, where I was just walking near my house and I started just praying literally out loud, and I felt extremely refreshed and convicted at the end of the walk. I was experiencing some kind of personal friction, I guess, and at the end of it I felt so convicted by God, and yeah, it was extremely helpful. People might think you're crazy, but for me, I personally love that, because that means the men do not approach and the catcallers do not approach, because I look insane talking to myself, and I literally do not care. It helps to repel the catcallers. And okay, another thing as well is the iPhone voice memo. So if I am feeling extra creative, if I just want to ramble and I just want to, I want to have this stream of like a flow of consciousness where I just want to blurt out and brain vomit all of my ideas, I would take my voice memo on my iPhone, and then I would just start talking of all the ideas that I have. And if I come across something interesting during that walk, I would look at the transcript on iPhone and I would go from there. And that is a very underrated thing that I do, and I think a lot of you might benefit from this actually. Something to highlight for these walks: no podcast allowed, okay? This is your time for your own thoughts, not for you to ingest anybody else's thoughts, not even my thoughts. Do not listen to me when you're going for these creativity walks. This is just you and your thoughts. Just let your mind wander a little bit. Go even until that point of boredom, because that's where the interesting ideas really come in, when you let yourself wander to the point of boredom. Number 4, I set in place consumption rules, and people might think that I'm being very strict, but I need to be strict, especially in this day and age, because we're consuming so much, and it's easier than ever before to consume. I actually set a 25-minute daily limit on my social media, and it's not a limit that I can just ignore simply because I used to do that and I would always just ignore it. But actually, I asked my sister to set a passcode to that limit, so once I reach that limit, I have to ask her to literally put the passcode if I want to use it. And obviously that adds so much friction, and I don't want to go up to her and, shamefully like, hey, I want to scroll on my reels, can you please tap your passcode? No. So I just don't go over the limit usually. Sometimes it happens though, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it happens. I let myself break the rules once in a while, but doom scrolling is definitely not my default anymore. It's not part of my daily habit, and I'm very, very happy to let that habit go. Another consumption rule that I recently started is actually planning out my consumption throughout the week. So every single Sunday I plan out my week, and when I plan out my week, I also plan out, okay, this week I want to learn about this topic. This week I want to, for example, learn about conflict management. And usually, I would assess the need, and usually I would be aware of this because of my morning pages. So say I'm constantly, in my morning pages that week, I'm really struggling with conflict management. Okay, I am now aware of that. So you see how these kind of work all together. I'm aware of that. This week I want to work on this. So I would literally set aside 1 or 2 evenings in the week just to work on a specific thing. I would, put the articles that I want to read, and maybe a YouTube video that I even want to watch, but it makes the whole consumption much more intentional and actually applicable to me. Like I'm actually choosing what to consume as opposed to mindlessly consume. A lot of what we're consuming is not actually what we choose to consume and what the algorithm recommends to us. So we think it's applicable to our lives when really it's not. It's just a lot of noise. And when I consume this way, I feel like I'm actually, like, the consumption is actually beneficial for me. Like, it's not bad to consume content. It's not bad. But at least now I know that it's actually tailored for me, and I'm reading because I actually have a real need for it, or I'm watching a YouTube video because I have a real need for it. Okay, the 5th system that I set in place is I schedule my unwinding time. So this is kind of coming back to when I plan my weeks on Sunday. I also schedule in how I want to unwind each day. So perhaps one day I want to learn about conflict management. I'm going to read. I'm going to spend the evening doing that. Or another evening, I want to join a dance class. And another evening, go to the gym or see a friend, whatever it is. But I really try to minimize having that idle time, because usually if I have idle time, I will spend it consuming. I will spend it brain rotting. How you unwind is really, really crucial, and especially crucial for your creativity, because we cannot thrive in this cycle of just working and then consuming and working and consuming. The things that you do outside of work really, really matters. How you unwind really, really matters. Hobbies, guys, hobbies are so important. The 6th system, or I guess this one is not really a system, but kind of just a mindset shift, is rereading the books that I love and that have changed my life. I actually want to invest in a few friends and develop that deep friendship and that deep intimacy. It's the same with books and the authors that you love. Meaning of Marriage, this is my 4th time reading it, and I'm learning so much again, and I'm pretty sure I will continue reading this book like I don't know how many more times. The Artist's Way, I just finished The Artist's Way this week, actually. This week we're having our last meeting inside Mademoiselle Society for The Artist's Way. So Artist's Way is like 12 weeks, that's 3 months, and I'm going to reread it once I finish. So that's going to be a total of 6 months with Julia Cameron. I want to spend I want you to just linger in the author's presence to get to know how they think, how they view the world. And I love this new approach. It's not really about like checkboxing, like, okay, I read this many books. No, who cares about that? Like, how are the books actually changing you? The quality really, really matters much more than the quantity. And the seventh system is actually this creation process that keeps me off screen. So, what do I mean by that? I actually started this because I was very just tired. My eyes felt really tired from being on screen all day. So I was thinking to myself of different ways that I can get off screens for work. So what I did is I purchased a notebook and I would brainstorm all of my ideas first on paper. And I've realized that, oh my God, the quality of my work seems to be so much better when I start with pen and paper. So that's actually my new rule. Everything that I do, it starts with pen and paper. This YouTube video, I brainstormed the whole thing with pen and paper. I put it into docs and then I printed it out. Simple. When I'm still in that creative process and brainstorming process, it's just the pen and paper. So by the time I open my laptop, I know exactly which tab to open, and I'm not trying to outsource my thinking to Google or to AI. It's just me and the paper, and usually the content comes out better. In my opinion, it comes out better and I feel much more aligned. Another thing that I do for my creation process is I batch all of the boring tasks into specific days in the month. So I'll give you a very concrete example. I still do a little bit of client work. I have one client where I help with their marketing, content creation, all of that. And I do want to keep this client for now, but obviously this kind of work is not, for me, it's not what I would consider the most creative. So what I would do to protect my creativity and my creative weeks, I would literally just find 2 to 3 days in a month where I will literally just work all day for this client. And I would just batch content create, like make as much content as possible in those 2 to 3 days, so that the rest of the month I have no work to do for this client and I'm focused on my creative process. This really, really helped me and to protect me from burnout. I used to have more clients and I found this new system, like, okay, I'm just going to dedicate 2 to 3 days in a month to just, execute the boring admin task, and then the rest of the month I'm literally free to just create and have my own usual creative ritual. Also, with AI, I think AI should not be anywhere near your creative voice, but you can train AI for the boring admin task, which I actually do for some of my client work. And I just use Claude AI and then I just create a little project thing for this client, and I just train it with all the prompts, so it really helps to facilitate the process. And that is what AI should be for. It should be for the boring, not the creative. It should not take your voice at all. Guys, please do not outsource your creativity to AI. This is something that I didn't think I was going to talk about, but I think it's really important that I touch on this. I used to rely a lot on AI in the beginning, when AI started, or like the chatbots, all of that, when it became popular. And I stopped because there's literally no use. Like, what is the use of me using AI to speak to you guys? Like, might as well you guys talk to the AI directly and not me. It makes no sense. Like, the point of me making this video is that you can hear my own voice and know that it comes from me and not from someone else. It's trippy. And also when people use AI and when people make videos that are very much scripted by AI, and you can almost tell now, and people are not likely to connect with you on a deep and soul level. Because imagine if, like, when I see a friend, I script all of what I'm gonna say based on what ChatGPT told me. She's gonna think I'm a robot or I'm insane or I'm crazy, She's not gonna be able to really connect with me, like, on a soul and spiritual level. It's the same when, if you're a content creator. don't outsource that creativity to AI. Like, just speak like you would speak to a friend. Like, when I see AI content, it makes me not even want to read or watch the whole thing because, yeah, it really, really throws me off. It really does throw me off. Something about it is just like, that's not you. People can tell. And even the other day, like, I posted an article and there were so many mistakes. I read through it and I was like, oh no, like, I already published this, I already sent it to the emails and stuff like that. Whatever, like, at least it's me, at least it's human. All right, well, I hope that has been helpful. Again, creativity is inside of you. You are a creative person. You're safe to create. You need the systems to allow your creativity to actually flourish. And you realize that none of these systems are actually revolutionary or magical or whimsical, even. They just work. And it requires a lot of diligence and discipline. So may this be your reminder to take that seriously. I hope that one of these systems inspired you. If it did, I'm curious to see how you're going to apply it in your life. But that is all for today, and I will see you next week. Bye. Mwah.